Hi everyone and welcome along to Sonic Academy with me, Chris. Today we're joined by a producer and a label boss of the impressive Perfect Driver music. They have just released the fourth installment of their compilation called Swerve, and they have held events in places like Hawaii, Detroit and LA. Would you please welcome to Sonic Academy the one, the only, Matthew Anthony. Hiya Matthew, you there?
Hey, I'm here. How you doing, Chris?
I am doing really, really well. I'm really good. Thank you so much for joining us today on Sonic Academy. We are using a new piece of software today called Zoom. And we're going to, Matthew actually introduced me to it and it's brilliant. So we're going to be able to look inside his project. We're streaming his screen and the audio from Ableton, pulling it through. It's all very complicated and it could all go tits up, but we're going to run with it. So Matthew, you've ran your label now probably for 8 years, maybe 6 years. I've read somewhere it was a really tough start for the label. And you persevered. How was it at the start? Was it very difficult?
Yeah. It was tough. I mean, you're basically starting a business, right? No one knows who the hell you are. You have no credibility. It's tough out there in the entertainment industry, right? And you're in LA and you're surrounded by the best people in the business, you know? So getting people to sign on with the label was tough at first. You know, it's all about relationships and how, good of a person you are. You're helping out smaller artists. So starting out with some smaller artists is important, or was important. And, the end goal is, changing the perception of your brand out there. And, the end goal is having bigger artists on your label so you can get more notoriety, right? So I want to expose these younger artists. And to do that, I like to sign like bigger names as well. And as long as the music's good and the branding looks good and the perception of the brand is, upheld, that's not a problem. But yeah, it was tough at first.
Was there a pivotal moment where everything changed and it started cementing and gaining traction? You went, now we've got it.
I mean, there've been so many of those moments. I guess one of them for sure was Mark Starr's remix of Aaron Snapes' track in 2013. It ended up on BBC Radio 1 on like Claude Von Stroke's Essential Mix. So,
yeah.
We were stoked and like so happy. So that was kind of like an eye opener and saying, all right, cool, might be onto something here.
And were you based in LA at that time? Were you, or still back in, where were you originally
Wisconsin.
from?
Yep.
Wisconsin?
I'm born and raised in Green Bay, Wisconsin,
Right.
the home of the Green Bay Packers and lots of cheese. Yeah. I had moved to LA in 2009, not even to work in music. I was a DJ at a club in Green Bay. So I was like into it and DJing for a long time. But I moved out here not planning to start a label, not planning to like go into music at all, really. And it just started to happen. Like all my friends were into it and it was a passion. And so it was like 2012, I was here in LA when I actually launched Perfect Driver, the record label. And before that, Perfect Driver was my artist alias. So I was actually releasing music as Perfect Driver, and then it became a label.
Perfect. Reading your background stuff, you were first getting the label started by trawling SoundCloud and looking for, and I love this quote, goofy bass heavy music. Is SoundCloud still a really good resource for finding new artists and finding new music, or is that something that's, with all its troubles and stuff and adverts, is it something that's fallen by the wayside?
I don't believe so. I mean, I'm surrounded. I work at this school here in LA. It's in Burbank called Icon Collective. And I'm surrounded by the brightest, most passionate young adult like music producers, right? So I teach Ableton, I teach synthesis, and I teach music business, right? So I'm constantly hanging out with these guys, and they are always pulling up SoundCloud, looking for new music. And these guys are talented; they're the best of the bunch. And so, yeah, as an indicator, they definitely look. I don't get as much time to troll through SoundCloud, but I'm always on it, uploading stuff for the record label. And a lot of my, the crew here at Perfect Driver, the core artists, if you will, like Wood Holly and Mark Starr, those guys are like sending me a lot of music, and they're always out there looking for free downloads and cool stuff to DJ with. So yeah, it's definitely still alive and kicking. And as far as like all the turmoil, I mean, lots of businesses go through that, and with the digital landscape the way that it is, things are always changing. So I'm happy that SoundCloud is still here doing what they're doing. I love that company, and I think it's cool. Like they're trying to hold true to their roots. So yeah, lots of ups and downs, but yeah, it's definitely still a place to go to find new music for sure.
No, it was totally a brilliant resource for getting artists exposed and finding things, and it did have its troubles, and I think perhaps it's weathered the storm and it's got through the other side. When you moved to LA, were you making this bass heavy, real sort of funk stuff, or did LA influence you once you landed there?
I was making pretty much the same stuff, man. I actually just looked back at the first track I ever released. It's on Beatport, and it's called You Said. In fact, I think that was in 2011 on a record label called Peak Hour Music. My roommate knew the owner, and he's like, hey, do my buddy a favor kind of thing. And I'm like, hey, like, this is still something that I would play. It's pretty cool. People who know me, who know Perfect Driver, you guys know that I love Dirty Bird. That's like one of my favorite labels. I love Claude Von Stroke. I just love, like, I really connect with the humbleness of their label and the humbleness of like house music from Chicago and stuff as well, in Detroit. So yeah, that's kind of what's influenced me, is this growing up from Green Bay. That's three and a half hours north of Chicago. So my friends were heavily influenced by house music, like real house music. And so that's kind of like what's formed Perfect Driver, and I guess, I don't know, guides me. So I haven't changed too much.
Would that have been the predominant music in Green Bay? Would it have been house from Chicago, or would you have had European techno or trance from the British guys or anything like that?
Yeah, Green Bay is a super small market. It's like a small town. It's like 100,000 people, right? But if you are going to find underground music in Green Bay, or just in Wisconsin in general, Madison, Milwaukee, it's definitely going to be slanted towards house music, right? Otherwise, yeah, you're stuck with like the usual stuff in America, top 40 radio and whatever clear channel is blasting in your ears. But if you actually search a little bit, you'll find house music, and that's definitely what people were doing back then.
Cool. Let's get on to some music then. Going through your catalog, there's a distinctive sound. I actually interviewed a collaborator of yours the other day, and he's on your label, Gop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So he's. I was chatting to him yesterday, and I know you have done tracks together, which we'll talk about. But I want to talk about the Oh I Know with Bot.
Yes.
Bot is from Crookers, is that correct?
Yeah, he's formerly one half of the Crookers, yes.
Right. Okay. Well, I interviewed Sasha Roboti.
Yep.
Who forgot about the interview and did the interview from the back steps of Bot's house, probably.
I totally saw that. That was awesome. Yeah.
So I was all confused, and we just ran with it and just went.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
So it's quite a dark track. Oh, I know. It's less bouncy and more dark.
Techno. Yeah, it's definitely almost like techno-ish and house-ish at the same time. We were influenced by like some like West Coast hip-hop 90s stuff. So what Bot and I do when we're, at least usually when we're making music, we'll jump on YouTube for inspiration, and just I had been listening to The Chronic by Dr. Dre, like that classic album, and I'm like really feeling it lately, and or when we were making it, right? So we jumped on and just typed in gangster rap, and then that influenced the bass line. So yeah, that's what we were influenced by gangster stuff with that. So it does sound dark.
And it was something I was talking to Gop about. There's definitely in this Claude Von Stroke, Dirty Bird, Perfect Driver sound, it's hip hop. It to me, it's club hip hop. There's the samples, and Gop was saying he would use hip hop snares and stuff, and SPLs to try and get the crunchy sort of sound. Is that how you see it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's called hip hop, or it's definitely influenced by hip hop. We have a lot of like 808 kicks in there, just that real like subby bass. Like sometimes the 808 kick actually becomes the bass line, which is also true in hip hop. I try not to use like samples or sample things. I would like to sometimes. Like I love Tupac, heavily influenced by Notorious B.I.G. I grew up on that stuff. And yeah, it's definitely influenced by hip hop. Some people are calling it, or called it, depending when you're listening to this, G house. And I mean, I don't really like to attach too much to genres. I pretty much stick to house and techno, and that's about it. But yeah, you could say that it's definitely influenced by hip hop for sure.
And things like the tracks like Girls. Where again, you touched on it. Where do you find vocals? Where do you find the vocals for that?
Okay, so girls, we're talking about my recent collaboration out on Perfect Driver with DJ Godfather
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Detroit. God bless him. He is a legend, right?
yeah.
In Detroit, he came up with he pioneered like ghetto house, right? So he has relationships with all of these talented artists from the '90s, and has he owns the rights to a lot of these vocals, right? So it was his idea to just kind of like throw that in there. He gave me the stems. With the vocal, and I was like, hell yeah, this vocal is great. So that's where it came from. It's legit. It's not stolen or
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. It's not even sampled. It's actually he owns the rights to you to put that out, which is it's an honor for me to be working with him and to have access to that kind of stuff. It's super super cool.
And the chopped up female vocal bits. How did you do that bit? That was kind of interesting to find.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's not a female vocal.
Ah,
it's actually the same. It's the male vocal, and I just open up. I double click on the audio file in Ableton, and I transpose it up, and then I put a gate on top of it, and I just repeated right over and
yeah.
over.
It-
And
the,
if you
the
guys aren't familiar, it's the point of the song goes like
yeah.
it's very choppy, right? So I threw a gate, and the gate opens very quickly, and it sounds crazy.
I love because the gate changes. I think after 8 bars or so, it changes to a different groove, and it's like this is very clever, you know. And you think there's so much processing and so much stuff going on here, and actually, you've pitched the vocal up and put a gate on, you know, and
I pitched the vocal up, I repeated it, and then I think on accident, you're talking about that second half of that drop.
yeah.
All I did was accidentally move it over, I think, and it ended up sounding cool. And so, yeah, it's all about the happy accidents, man. It's like,
I think that's something we got to, you know, we're always constantly trying to tell guys here is, you know, experiment. You know, it's the accidents that you turn a knob and you get feedback and it crackles or something. You go, oh wow, this is amazing. It's, you know, I love that. Let's have a look. You're doing a remix of a very big classic track from 1999. It's by, can you remind me, Paul
Johnson from Chicago. Yeah, the legend.
The legend,
Yeah.
and everybody knows this track. It's Get Down, and we're going to take a look inside the project and have a listen to it and have a sort of a nosy about your project and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool. Well, let's first maybe listen to the original, right? And
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
you guys tell me if this sounds good or not. I'll do a quick test here.
Down, 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 down,
Just very loud.
down, 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 down.
Say again.
It's just very, very loud.
Oh, it's very, very loud.
Yeah,
Got
very,
it.
very
Let's
loud.
do. Let me just turn this down.
Yeah,
One,
turn
two,
your way
three.
down there.
My bad. Okay, now let's try this.
Down, down, down.
Any difference?
Still a bit loud. Just pull
Okay,
it.
let's.
Yeah.
I got you. Let's put it through the master. We'll do this. Better?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let me turn this back up to. All right, so here's the original masterpiece.
Down, 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 down.
Cool. So how did that sound? Is that all right?
It sounds cool, but it's still a bit loud. If you can pull the master of Ableton, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Just pull it by about 5 dB. There we go.
One more try here.
Down, 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 down.
All right. So this is my track, right?
Yeah,
How's that sound?
that sounds amazing.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I guess we could dive into the track. I kind of wanted just to do a deconstruction for you guys. This one's coming out on Moody Recordings. Is officially, sent over to me, and I was so excited to put to give this a shot. I actually sent it over to a few of my friends as well. So it's not confirmed yet, but it sounds like Bot might be doing one as well. I think Jay Wara and a couple Perfect Driver artists, as well as like some bigger names, are yet to be confirmed. But
And will this come out on your label?
nope, this is
No.
going to be on Moody Recordings.
Moody
and,
Recordings.
It's actually Moody is owned by Mr. Jonas Temple, who's a great producer in his own right, but he's one of the founding members of Beatport, which I think is just super cool. So he runs this label called Moody, and Moody's like a classic label, I believe, that's been around for years. And yeah, so they own the rights to some of these classic tracks. So having this remix pack come out is just pretty cool. It's great to be involved with it.
And so, Matthew, where you get this classic remix in, that's a daunting task in itself. Where do you start? What's the sort of first thing that you do in a remix to get the thing going?
Yeah, so with this track, I really wanted to pay homage to the original being such an important track. I didn't want to offend anyone. I was really just thinking the whole time, I was like, is Paul Johnson going to like this? I don't know him personally. So I'm just like, wow, I really hope he likes it. I hope he doesn't get mad at me, basically. So I'm like, I cannot screw this up. So there's a couple different things, and this is like a normal production technique for me. Obviously, I listened to the original. And then I kind of go through like some other tracks to get inspiration, right? And then I combine all these different inspirations with my production knowledge and my own style, and I use my own drums and blah blah blah. But I do have reference tracks, which I highly recommend to people for several reasons. If you look closely here, if you can see my Ableton, you'll see that there's this track called Swag On, and it's got obviously a break right here. And if you look at my track, same thing. There's the break. And the reason I'm referencing the arrangement for this track is because I really like DJing with it. This is the original track is Swag On by Detlef, I think. And let me just play that real quick. Okay. Hopefully it's not too loud for you. Let me turn that down a little bit. So it's got kind of like a tech house vibe, tech house, and I just really like DJing with it. So I referenced the arrangement for that, right? And then on the actual groove, right? So this is Chicago, and in Chicago, one of the best DJs and producers in history, in my opinion, is Mr. Derek Carter, and Derek is I don't know if anybody knows this these days, but they used to call him the Boopity House King, I believe.
The what? Whippity House?
Boompity House, because basically his music goes boompity 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 boom, right? Okay. So it's got these really cool rhythm and this cool. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't want to screw that up, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But he if I play just a sample of Derek's song here, you'll probably hear some really interesting stuff happening on the low end. And it just sounded really groovy. It's got those extra little ghost kicks in there. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. I love that, and I was like, there's no way I can possibly do it as good as Derek, but I did my best. So I think what I actually did is I selected perhaps like part of his song, and I just hit Command E here, and what was it? I think convert to, it was like extracting the groove or something like that. Yeah. And so I stole the groove, and then I applied that groove, right? Yep. That's the swing to my hats. So my hats are actually, they come from a Billy Kenny pack. I wanted to update the sound as well, just so it's like more modern and darker sounding and kind of more grittier. The hats. Actually, I should play my part of my song too. But check this out real quick. Okay, sweet. So you can see all this MIDI information here. Yeah. This is the velocities. These are the notes, and you can see the spacing. It's not right on the grid. It's moved around quite a bit, and that's because of Derek Carter's groove from his track.
Sorry, can I ask? Are you doing the velocities?
Nope, that's all coming from
Derek
the
Carter's?
information that I pulled from Derek Carter. Yeah. So I don't know. Is that coming through? Okay, can you hear that?
Coming through. Yep.
Okay, beautiful. It's a little quiet on my end, but it's great.
You can turn it up a little bit if you wanted.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right, give that a shot. Hopefully that's not too loud. Let me actually throw on basically the meat and potatoes of my song. Is it cool if I just let it ride for maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes?
Yeah, let's run it.
Okay, cool. So I want you guys to actually hear my song. We'll unsolo this. Where is the best part? Probably from here. And then I'll just play this. I'll just play this section, basically, through the break, build, and drop. So I wanted to make something cross between house and tech house. That was my goal, with without ruining the original. Down, 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 down. Get.
That would be the tech house influence coming in there. That's those sort of stabs.
And here comes the breakdown and the build. Down, 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 down. Down.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the meat and potatoes of the track. And like I said, I wanted it to sit or appeal rather to the house music crowd as well as like the tech house music crowd. I love tech house, and I wanted it to just be really funky as well. So
let's go through some of the instruments. I seen a serum and a massive there. What's producing the bass first of all?
Okay, yeah. So the bass comes from a massive. There we go. A massive plugin, I believe, or a preset somewhere for like an acid house, right?
Right.
Super basic. I don't even know if I turn up the resonance if you're going to hear this. Yeah, so you can hear it's like a...
Right, just a nice squelchy bass.
Yeah, it's like but it's not really squelchy if you turn the cutoff down and the resonance down, you know? That's what I did on that one.
There's a heavy side chain as well going on then?
Yeah, I do my side chaining most of the time with Steve Duda's LFO tool, right?
Yeah.
And it's important for me. I have like just a bedroom studio here, literally, in my house, but I actually go over to Icon Collective where we've got amazing studios to do my mix downs. And I had a mastering technician once in the UK named Mike Milrain, who does everything for Perfect Driver. There's a little plug for him. He's awesome. He told me that, hey man, like I sent this over to him and he's like, yo, I don't think your kick is going to be pushing enough air. So basically the kick wasn't shining through that bass line. So I really spent like almost a day trying to like mix down the low end to make it sound, you know, solid and good on a big system. Again, I didn't want to like offend anyone with this song, and I wanted to like really do a good job. So yeah, it's kind of weird and crazy how I did it, but I actually lined up the kick, the actual length of the kick, which is a quarter note, right? And then this rate, the LFO rate on Steve Duda's plugin, right, is also moving in at a rate of a quarter, right? So I'm literally like looking at the audio and listening and making sure that my my volume of my bass line is ducking out whenever this kick hits.
Okay. And
Go ahead.
can I ask, do you use one sidechain timed, or do you use several different timings of sidechain? I've seen some producers that will use 4 or 5 different sidechain timings, and some that just use one.
I'm normally, my stuff is pretty housey, so it's always 4 on the floor, and I'm just using one normal.
No, normal one. Okay.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
No, I mean they use this just different envelopes of the same sidechain, always on the quarter note, but just slightly different timings for pads, and bass lines are a bit harder.
Oh,
do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
definitely. Yeah, for sure I do. For sure. So if I'm sidechaining to a kick, or if I'm sidechaining the kick to the bass, rather, definitely different than sidechaining like to the effects or like a long pad or something like that. It's always like however whatever sounds the best, you know. I believe here on my effects, I usually put LFO tool on the effects, and this is like a totally different curve. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's you have a slightly different timing going on. It's not just one master sidechain.
Yep, totally. That's super important. Yeah, I mean, you can throw it on if the effect that you're looking for is to have the entire track bounce and swing like that. Then totally do it. Yeah.
But other pads a bit less, kick, subs quite loud. So is the bass layered, or is it that's the only bass sound?
It is layered. The second layer is the higher end, and there you go. If you can hear that,
yeah.
It's simply EQ'd differently, and I threw OTT on there, which is another. This is a free plugin from Steve Duda at Xfer. Highly recommend it. It's basically he remade the stock Ableton preset of OTT. It stands for over the top compressor.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like excites the higher frequencies. So if you're really looking to pull out, I don't know, certain frequencies that are like hiding in your sounds, you can throw this on anything and just kind of play around with the knobs. I'm usually touching the top one here and this one up and down. And that will definitely make a difference in your sound and kind of like make things pop a little bit more and stand out. It's pretty awesome. And I just started using this thing. I use it a lot now.
And it's over everything. So let's quickly touch back on drums. Is it loops you're using? Do you drag in audio files and draw in 16ths or hats patterns, or are you dropping in loops and chopping bits out? What way is the sort of percussion?
A little bit of everything. So let's listen to this percussion real quick. So there's lots of hats. This is all I group all of my like top end percussion in one group, right? And then each one gets EQ'd separately. Sometimes I'll pull in loops and one hits or whatever, just to kind of like see how things go. I love Ableton because you can audition loops as you're playing. So if you guys aren't into using Ableton, give that a shot. It's dope. Yeah, and it's a lot of trial and error for me, but one of my secrets that I like to do that I'll pass along is once I'm done with a song, I have what's called a folder that's called song sets.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm really happy with my percussion here and I want to use it again on another song, I'll simply drag this over here and then let go. And then all of a sudden, if I have a friend come over, like Worthy just came over a couple days ago from Dirty Bird, one of the founding members of Dirty Bird came by, and he's like, well, let's get started. So all I did was, pulled in percussion from an old song, and then we kind of tweaked that out and added some more loops on top of it. But that's just a great way. It's literally just copying all your settings, like presets, everything that you've done into a folder, So if you want to get started on a track right away, you just drag it in and go.
And
It's like super
that will save several channels, will it? Because Logic has a channel strip, but it'll just save the one channel strip, so you'd have to open several to get that to work. So it saves 2 or 3 plugins and whatever. Yeah.
It saves everything.
Cool.
Takes up a little room on your computer, but whatever. Saves time, like hours. and the important thing about that is if you guys are new producers or whatever, and you want to establish your sound and you want to be known for a certain sound, there's nothing wrong with like reusing your drums. So like the Beatles, they recorded an entire album using the same drum set. You can do that too. You don't have to redo your drums every time. Just like drag them over, maybe switch something out, put a different kick in, maybe tune the percussion a little differently. But people are going to start associating that sound with you, which helps build your brand and makes you a more credible and more popular artist.
Okay, so we've looked at percussion, we've looked at sort of drums and bass. What would be next in your design? What would you build? Is it effects or stabs, or how do you get the sort of atmosphere going?
Yeah, so I start with a kick, and then I usually add in the bass, and then doing the percussion. And from there, a lot of my songs are very effect heavy. So I'll just go on various websites. I think Splice is one of them that I use on this. And you can see here, there's a bunch of different effects going on. Mm-hmm. And I just listened to the reference tracks, and I'm like, okay, well, this Swag On track used like, some bloops and some bleeps, and they used some white noise as a build, and, that's not too offensive. It accomplished the goal of, building tension. So I don't try to overthink it. Sometimes I'm using basic stuff here, and if you set it back in the mix a little bit, you don't turn it too loud, and hey, you're good to go.
Could we possibly have a listen in solo and then in context within the track?
Yeah, let me just loop this section right here. Oop. Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, this is soloed. And we got nothing going on. Hold on.
Pick a And again, very low in the mix, just sitting, bubbling underneath, just adding atmosphere.
Yeah. Correct.
Few little risers.
That's it, pretty much.
Yeah, and then let's hear it in context.
Down, 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 down.
So yeah, it's with these effects, with at least my style of music, it's very important to zoom in and like cut these off at just the right point.
Right.
Yeah, and that's super important, just to kind of like deliver that energy and get people set up for the big drop or whatever,
And when it comes to the big drops, with your style of music, it's almost important what's not there than what is there. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, I think a common mistake that a lot of guys do is they'll throw like the vocal, like the meat and potatoes of the vocal, right on the drop. And in house music, at least in techno and stuff, right, you've got your bass line carries the track, right? So a lot of the times you should bring in that vocal maybe halfway through the drop, right?
Just as a pickup.
Your first phrase, and then the second phrase maybe bring in the vocals. So one thing that I've learned recently is to usually your first build and break and drop, your first drop should mainly be your bass line, right?
Yeah.
Don't throw a lot on that. Just let that ride, because when the DJ is mixing out and into the next track, you want to shock them with that new bass line or whatever. At least with my style of music, that's what we're doing.
And you're trying to get them to do some work and make it hard for them to mix.
Well, yeah.
And then lastly, what would be what comes last? I take it the stabs come before the effects. The effects are the sort of the polish on top of the thing. So you would be working on the stabs.
Yeah, the stabs are I put a lot of effort into my fills. if
Right.
you will.
Yeah.
So the fills are, for this song, I actually downloaded the MIDI from the internet somewhere. I don't know how I found it, but I found it and I downloaded the MIDI because when I was given the parts to this track, I was only given the vocal. Like that's it. I didn't have anything to reference. If I wanted to sample the original, I could, but I really didn't. I just downloaded the MIDI and threw it through Logic. Actually, I couldn't find I couldn't find a good piano on Ableton that I liked. But here it is. I'll solo this. Right, and then I'll do the whole thing. So I think this filtered wall, this little wall thing.
Yeah.
That's actually part of the original track. That's the only part of the original track that was actually sampled. And then there was a EQ cut, a bunch of EQ cutting that went on. Yeah, so that's like, I believe that was from the original.
It's a very famous piano. It's almost as iconic as the vocal. That piano.
Totally. So I wanted to keep that in there for sure to pay homage to the original. So that's the original MIDI, and again ran it through like Contact, I believe, on Logic at Icon Collective here. One of the students had it because I just couldn't find like a really nice sounding piano in Ableton. So that's what I ended up using. So those are the stabs. Usually the finishing touches are the effects, and then a lot of like drum work, intricate drum work, like every little section here. I meticulously went through with my drums and placed these things perfectly. Listen to it a million times. Like, let's just check it out here. Yeah.
No, you need that to me is the difference between the bedroom producer and the proper producer. Is that attention to detail? Let's take it, let's give it 100. That's when I love producing, is when most of the work is done and you can start getting really intricate and really clever with it and really thinking, how can I pull the most out of this track? So I suppose lastly, what you've done your drums, you got the bass line in, the stabs, there's some effects in, you've been really intricate with all the fills, it's all mapped out. What do you put over the master? Do you do much mastering, light mastering, or what way do you do it?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to go through the kick group real quick. So let me give you a second to do that. This is an intricate kick group. I've got the normal kick here. Let me just loop this real quick for you. And I'll show you my master. So here's the kick.
Yeah.
And then I've got this ghost kick, like this Derek Carter ghost kick that comes in. And then we've got another extra bass hit right there. And then I've also got a ring and a tone all on top of this. So happening. So that gives that boompity house kind of sound. I tried for it.
Yeah.
And the way I did that, I placed these, I basically zoomed way in on Derek Carter's waveform. I made sure that it wasn't warped, zoomed in on it, and I literally tried to place my drums exactly where his drums were. And I got close. People have told me this sounds pretty funky, but he's the best. But I tried to emulate that a little bit. And then the master, right, is down here, and I'm a big advocate for Ozone. I just love Ozone's products. So yeah, I just threw the imager on there, right, to kind of just turn down. I monoed the bass, so anything under 156 in this case, and then I just kind of like widened things out a little bit, right?
Yeah,
and then threw an EQ on it, and this is like the pre-master. This is the mixdown session, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have a limiter on here. I don't have a compressor on here. I just have everything peaking around -6 to -3 decibels before I send it off to Mike Milrain, who's in the UK there. So not much going on. And the way that I do my mixdowns is, I think I actually referenced, for sound quality wise, I may have referenced this Swag-On track as well, which sounded beautiful to me. So the way I do that, I don't want to run Swag-On through my master, right? I want to be able to A and B my production to this untouched original track that sounds beautiful to me, right? So all I do is, instead of running it through the master, I change this to exterior out.
Yeah.
And then I just solo it. And then I turn solo on and off, basically. On and off like a switch. And that'll switch between my production, which goes through the master, and then Swag On, which does not.
Oh, brilliant. That's a very clever way. And does it get frustrating then when you're not in the ballpark and you're really trying to mold this thing to get sounding like Swag On, or was it always kind of close?
I kind of had it up there referencing as I was producing. So, whenever the good thing about using reference tracks is that whenever you lose your way, whether it's in arrangement or sound quality or vibe or anything, if you just don't know what to do next, all you have to do is go up there and play the song. It's like finished, there for you. And you're not copying anyone, right? You're not going to be sounding exactly like this thing. It's important to be original and like not copy someone. But if you're just like copying the sound or the feeling or the arrangement, I'm not using the same percussion. I'm not using the same vocal. It's actually a totally different track than the Swag On track, right? But I definitely used it as like a key influence, when I was producing all along the way.
Perfect. Well, Matthew, I'm going to put you back in full screen here. Let's see if we can get, there we go, back and looking lovely. I'll move this up here. That worked out really, really well, and it was a brilliant insight into having a look inside a project, and I'm definitely going to be doing more of these. Thank you so much for introducing me to the Zoom software. What are the plans for 2018?
Well, Bot and I are probably going to continue to do DJs and cooking. If you search for a hashtag DJ and DJS and cooking, you'll find a bunch of live streams that we've recorded right in the other room there in my kitchen. We've had Riva Star pop by. We've had Bot, of course, myself, Jay Wara,
Billy
Walker
Kennedy
and Royce from Dirty Bird. Let's see, who else? Sage Armstrong from Dirty Bird, Astronomar from Main Course Records. Like, all these guys are just coming through. We started the idea because we love cooking and we love DJing and we wanted to have a dinner party and hang out with our friends. So all these guys just start coming through, and we decided to make a live stream out of it. So we're using this camera here, as well as a couple others, and we've teamed up with a company called Wave, who's been helping us out a lot. And so we're doing that, DJs and cooking, and then there's always releases on Perfect Driver. I'm working with Billy Kenny on one this year. I'm working possibly with Sasha Robati. Both of us have bad backs, so we're probably going to make like some kind of lumbar support. It's going to be weird. And then Worthy and I just got in the studio. I just finished one with Bad Boy Bill and DJ Godfather. So yeah, there's just like a ton of stuff happening. I'm going to continue to teach at Icon Collective. But yeah, check out Perfect Driver. And also I'm doing some consulting on the side. So if you guys want to do one-on-one sessions like this, hit me up. It's consult@perfectdrivermusic.com, where we just sit down for like an hour and a half and inquire about the pricing if you're interested. I'm happy to like go over any of your productions just like this, and that'd be cool.
Always the professional getting the plug in there. And we've talked about getting you on Sonic Academy to do a course on Sonic Academy as well. So that would be that would be something to look forward in 2018. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure and really insightful looking into the remix. That's coming in 2018 as well, isn't it?
It is, yes. There's no release date yet, but it should be coming out hopefully maybe the first quarter. Again, it's the Get Down remix by Paul Johnson and Matthew Anthony.
Cool. And you need to get some recipes up in your DJs and cooking, because I was wondering, what are they cooking? Actually, I can hear the music, I can hear the chat. I just want to know what they're cooking.
I know, exactly. There's so much that goes into this thing, and that's definitely on the list. Bot is super passionate about cooking. So if you guys want to know any of the recipes on DJs and Cooking, just tweet him. He's always on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. Come say hello. We'll help you out.
We do. Well, next time we're in LA, we'll pop in for some seriously good food and some seriously good music. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us on Sonic Academy today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Guys, I want to thank Matthew for joining us today, showing us inside an up-and-coming remix. You can check that out very, very soon, and check out his label, Perfect Driver. And hopefully we'll get a course from Matthew in the new year and doing some goofy bass heavy music. So thank you very much everyone, and see you all very, very soon.